Hello friends, welcome to the Handyman Devlog. It's been a little while, and things look a little bit different around here. Well, technically, here is a different here than it used to be, but that's neither here nor there. Since last we spoke, there's actually been an update, so let's talk about a few of the changes involved in that update. First of all, is a change that's a little bit more under the radar, is a change to the saves. So now there's 2 extra save slots, and there's also the ability to copy a save slot and paste it onto another save slot. The idea there is to make it easier so that if you want to try out certain things, try slightly different variations of your main path, you'd be able to do that without having to start back over from the beginning. So if you want something slightly different to happen on day 5 or day 6, rather than starting a new save slot and playing through till you get to that point, you can just copy your playthrough over to a different save slot, change what you want to happen on that day, and then go forward from there without overwriting your initial playthrough. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the bigger change, the more significant change, which is character swapping. Why it's in there now, why it wasn't in there before. There are 2 main reasons why the characters weren't swappable from the get-go. One is that all of the animations are custom made for those characters. So if I'm making animation for a Dana scene, it's going to take into account the fact that she's not wearing shoes, that she's short, and if I'm making a scene for Araceli, she's a little bit thicker, so hand placement on hips is going to be a little bit further out, a little bit wider, etc., etc. The second reason is related to the sex camera rig. The sex camera rig is what takes over during a scene that moves the camera around and makes it more cinematic. There's 3 basic components to the sex camera rig. There's the camera mounts, the focuses, and then the camera blockers. The camera mounts are what you see here represented by the pink cubes. They're places that the camera can be positioned. A single camera mount is actually a collection of usually between 3 and 5 different positions, and then the sex camera rig selects 2 of those spots and then chooses to move in between those 2 spots that it has selected. The focus is a place where a camera can look at, so it's generally going to be a body part of one of the characters or a collection of body parts between the 2 characters. So it might be between the 2 chests of the characters, so on and so forth. But it's a point at which the cameras are going to focus on. And finally, the camera blockers are these green rectangles. They serve the purpose of telling the camera system if a focus point is going to be blocked by a certain object. And where this becomes a complication for the swapping of characters is that some of these objects are going to be attached specifically to the characters in the scene. So for example, on day 4 in the scene with Araceli, there's a focus on Araceli's hips, and that was hardwired effectively to her hips. And likewise with all of the focuses and all of the other parts of the camera rig that are attached to body parts, I had to sit there and individually drag and drop the different body parts that I wanted them to follow, I wanted them to be attached to the sex camera rig, which over time becomes more and more tedious as I add more and more scenes. So really, in order to make things simpler for myself going forward, I try to genericize the whole process. I created a component to add to each of the characters called a focus person. And then within this, I set up what each of their focus traits are. So I tell the game where this character's eyes are, where its mouth is, where its head. And like I said, I do this for each of the characters. Then when it comes time to set up the sex camera rig, all I need to do is drop in the character, rather than setting up all of the individual body parts again every single time. Now the reason I did this was just to make things simpler for me, so I didn't have to do so much tedious, busy work and doing the same thing over and over again. But the upside beyond that was it became very easy to make the characters swappable within animation mode. So the initial problem still does remain where some of the characters' animations aren't going to work with other characters, but all in all, I think it's worth it. Okay, the Day 7 update. I would guesstimate I'm about 85% done with it. I'm hoping to have a release somewhere in January, mid to late January probably. There's going to be one main scene. I just finished up the main loops for the scene yesterday. I still have all of the O's to do, but I started dialogue for the build-up as well yesterday, so pretty decent progress on that. There's going to be one non-standard scene as well in this day, and there's going to be something else, I'll say. The puzzles are done for the day, and I'm pretty pleased with them. They're a little bit more intertwined than they normally are. Now, I'm curious to see how one of the aspects of the puzzle in particular, how difficult it is for people, because I'm asking you to make a little bit of a connection between two things that I'm more or less leaving it for you to put together yourself. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to leave it for the time being. If people really struggle with it, then I will add some clues, but I'm thinking it'll be okay. And the last thing I will say about Day 7 is there will be a new character. Meet Sonam. She is Araceli's roommate, and we'll get to know her a little bit better on Day 7. And I wanted to kind of talk about a few things that I'm hoping to do in the next year, a couple things I would like to replace. So for the sake of keeping this PG-13, I'm going to call it Grant's juice. The juice that he gives to the girls at the end of his scene. I'm looking to replace that at some point. It's something that I've been fooling around with over the past year or so, trying different things, and never found anything that quite worked. I'm aware that it looks more like snow than a sort of liquid at this point, but I've never found anything that I'm quite happy with. So I will continue to look into ways to improve and replace Grant's juice. So another thing that I am also looking to replace is the navigation system. So right now I am using Unity's basic navigation system, which works for the most part. There's a couple of issues which you've probably run into. So first and most annoyingly is where the characters get stuck on the corners of certain objects, and they just go back and forth. I made a band-aid fix to this a while ago so that they didn't get permanently stuck. If they were in one spot for too long, it basically forces them forward and gets them out of that spot. The other main issue is that certain characters will just plow through other characters depending on if they're moving or not, and you can get very awkward moments of just Tanya plowing through other people instead of going around them. I have looked into a replacement navigation system on the asset store, and it's probably something I will be trying to implement in the coming year. It's a little bit trickier than replacing other things because so much is dependent on the navigation system. The whole traversal system is based on it, so it's not going to be an easy fix, but it is something that I am looking to do and hopefully will get done in the next year. So another thing that I am considering adding to the game, and you guys can give me feedback on this if you think it's a good idea, a bad idea, or what you'd like to see. I'm considering adding a store to the main menu. So a while back, maybe even a year ago, I put out a poll asking if people wanted to continue having all of the unlockable items just hidden within the game, or if they would prefer a store system where you can earn points in the game and then purchase the items from the store. And at the time, people voted to keep the items just hidden within the game, which is easier for me. But at the same time, I am now considering just doing both and having a store option in the main menu. But then the question becomes, what does the currency, how do you accumulate it? How does that work? The main thought that I had was that you would earn points while playing the sex mini games. So for the main sex mini game, my thought is that you would get more points, the further along into it you are, but then also kind of as a multiplier, the smaller the safe zone is when you actually hit the button, the more you would get, because I want to reward risk. So if you hit the baseball button as the safe zone is really large at the start of it, then you will get points, but you won't get as many points as if you wait until it's shrunk down to almost being gone, at which point you will get effectively the maximum amount of points you could get. And I think that's going to wrap things up for this devlog, so thanks everybody for tuning into this one, and we'll catch you on the next one.